Welcome to a new episode of Flowcast. If you want to know more about our music and science project, visit our Substack page at artmusicscience.substack.com. This podcast is available on Apple, YouTube, and all the main podcast platforms. In this episode, we're going to meet Warren, a musician based near Vancouver in Canada. I'm going to ask him about the work he did for our project, which we're going to listen to at the end of our conversation. Hi Warren, thank you for being here. By the way, nice wall of synthesizers I see back there. Is that what you use for your composition, for flow?
I did that with this. I have got this wall of stuff here, but
I love it.
This one is the that performance case basically. But
right.
I use that for this piece, the flow piece. And it just has like a tape looper. There's a granular thing, a resynthesizer, and then a few other ways of kind of like processing it. You can almost like roll it in on itself and do a whole bunch in this one thing. And it's so much better just having that and not everything, because it just gets overwhelming. So and I definitely found that with Ableton. I'm just looking at the instruments, like I can't pick a bass drum. Like it's just impossible. So now I just have one of everything, and that's it. If I turn that on and plug it in, it's making noise. So then you just start playing. Yeah. Whereas, if you're in a Ableton or something, you just got this blank thing, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And you go through 200 snare sounds and then you spend 1 hour and that's it.
That's your time gone. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us something about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah. So my name's Warren. I go by Bleeptwig is my artist name. I'm a service designer by trade and a sound artist, musician in my spare time. Work a lot with modular synths. I've been making music since like the 90s. Used to be into kind of the techno scene, drum and bass. Got really into electroacoustic music when I was at university. I've sort of carried that through my life, really. I had a big break, 30 year break, and then I got back into making music in the last year or so.
All right, so it's quite recent, your return to music.
Yeah. There's a bit of a story around it. So I was in the UK. My mum was quite sick last year, and I spent a lot of time in the UK, and there wasn't anything I could do, but I just had a lot of time waiting around, and I didn't have any of my usual distractions. I didn't have my laptop or anything, and I found a drum machine in a used electronics store. And I thought, it would be fun to get back into making some stuff. So I started making things, and then opened the door to these modular synthesizers, which I didn't even know was a thing. And I just loved it again. And so I started making music again. And so pretty much all my spare time now is just is making music.
That's great, including the work you did for Flow. So first thing, what attracted you to the project? What led you to apply to the open call?
The topic and the whole idea just resonated straight away. I mean, flow is pretty much connected to music. Like it's a very natural fit, just the word itself. And then the idea of the river and the connection of that to our culture and all of those other aspects of it, as I started digging into it, just really, really resonated. My wife also works in biology and it's sort of ecological environment. So
very connected to our topics then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just it had a good fit because of that.
For this project, we share with the artist context, photos, a time-lapse video of images taken from satellites that's been created by the scientists at the University of Würzburg. And initially, the field recordings were not even supposed to be there. It's just a couple of weeks before launching the project, let's drive to the river Lech.
You did those? Yeah, because there's a picture of you. Now I see you. There's a picture of you, isn't there, with the mic?
Yeah,
okay.
So we went just one weekend. So it was 1,200 kilometers.
That's hugely appreciated.
But we wanted to give the artists as much context as possible. And of course, the field recordings were a nice addition to that. So I was wondering, did you mostly focus on one of the elements you were given, or you took a more holistic approach and considered all the material?
That's a good question. So when I first looked into it, I looked at the presentation that was prepared, the history and the context around the whole event. And it was considering the river in that complete way, like the impacts on the environment, like how perhaps we're kind of repairing our relationship with the river. Now we have a better understanding of how these things all connect. And so that part really connected to me, because I live in coastal British Columbia. So there's a lot of similarities here. We have the kind of subalpine kind of starting points for rivers, and then they come all the way down, and then they come through the communities and out to the ocean. And there's a lot of work that goes into, keeping those clear and fresh and beautiful, and so that we have them for generations, right? So there was a clear connection there, and I could see that when I saw the satellite imagery, and you could see it kind of moving over time. And then as the historical photos and maps of the river and how that had changed, and that was the bit that connected with me. And actually, I mean, I went through the list. There was 25 segments. I went through the list, and I thought they all sound basically the same, because it's just noise, pretty much. And there's other details in there, but it's, I thought, okay, we're going to need more. There's going to need to be more thought here, rather than just sort of, pulling an interesting sound from it. And so the field recordings were kind of like, it was almost secondary. So I did use that sound, and there's a few parts where there's some things you can kind of hear something else happening. And the segment 25 is obviously quite a busy part of the river. There's a lot happening as it goes into the Danube. So I thought, okay, so I knew I needed to use more than just the sound and have a kind of, a concept about it. And so then that led me to where I went with the piece, which was thinking about this idea of kind of, threads that came together, like, there's a flow and something that comes together and then joins this bigger piece. And so I thought I want to do this kind of, practically, kind of take the sound and deconstruct it into pieces, but then also bring pieces from the river. So the other work that other artists had shared, like pulling those pieces together and sort of have those things connect. I wanted the grains or the threads or the sediments to kind of connect and tell this kind of story. And the idea being that the flow of the river kind of, as well as moving sediment and shaping the land, also changes and shapes our culture, like the culture around it and the space, how people interact with it. And so I wanted to try and pull some of those ideas together into the piece.
Well, that's very fitting with the general idea of the project. First of all, you mentioned the connectivity. This connected sound is an idea that took shape in the WhatsApp group. The idea was for each artist to voluntarily contribute a piece of their sound so that all the other artists could just go on into that folder and just listen for inspiration and use any of those. Another thing that you said is when you compared the River Lech to the place where you live. So we were asking this question around projects that are being planned and executed on the River Lech, but they could be anywhere. There are renaturalization projects. And so we are asking the ethical question.
Yeah.
Does it mean taking the river back in time? And how far back should we go? Or is it something else? Is it like taking it forward to kind of relationship between us humans and the river, which hasn't existed yet?
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, because my wife had said the same thing, because a lot of the work that she does is around the, there's a lot of hydroelectric power in BC, and so there's dams that have been built or being built that impact the way the salmon travel up the river, and those are obviously as an important thing. Not just salmon, obviously there's a whole bunch of habitat that these rivers provide. Obviously that had a connection, and so I brought in sounds from recordings I've made here in BC, but then more so it was the kind of the thinking around that, trying to illustrate that connection of the culture and the river, like the connection of those things. Because here in BC, obviously the First Nations had that sort of symbiotic relationship with the river and that sustainable relationship, and it seems like maybe we've been a bit slow at figuring that out.
We struggle a little bit with that.
But it's, I think I came into it expecting, there'll be a sound from around the area and you make something interesting from it. But then getting into it, there's data, there's maps, there's context around it, there's the event itself. There were so many other things that it was almost overwhelming at the start. Thinking, okay, I've got to think about this. How are we going to make something good out of this and meaningful?
Let's find out by listening to Warren's composition, Sedimental Threads.